Hi, everyone, and welcome to this energy reading of 2025. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the general energy that is going on in the collective at the moment and some of the energies that seem to be coming in, and what I sense is really important for 2025, and some of the things that maybe we should maybe be a wee bit more conscious of, or things that maybe we should take care of, and things that we should maybe look out for. So in the energy of 25, if we think about a lot of the energies that were going on in 2024, particularly at the latter end, we noticed that a lot of people, particularly a lot of empaths, sensitive and healers, were noticing this real kind of shift into a more slower pace, as if they're being forced for whatever reason to take time out, or to be forced into a different way of doing things, and almost being forced to rest more. And one of the things that I've noticed with those that people that I know that are healers or therapists and clients, and even myself, is that a lot of us are still feeling as if we've got one foot kind of in the work that we've done before, but we're feeling as if there's another foot moving into that next stage of an evolution of our work. And it's many people are feeling as if they're kind of stuck, as if they're in this void. It's like, they don't really know what's happening. It's almost that having to just almost pause or wait till we have that intuitive guidance to that next step, right? And we're all different. We all have different purposes. We also work differently in the way that we're guided intuitively, and how we feel we're so led. But there is a lot of energies that are pushing us towards this slower pace, and a lot of people are also stepping back from the business at the moment, are feeling there's a rush to do certain things. And my perspective of this is through a variety of reasons, right? Some of it was things that intuitively I was almost seeing and sensing even up to 5 years ago. And since a lot of things that also I've been talking to my audience about for a long time, but also there's general things we're seeing that we're not actually physically seeing them. But also what I did today was, even though I don't take cards out as much, I did do some cards in relation to archetypes, because archetypes is something that I like working with to help people understand themes, understand patterns, understand constructions. And I'm going to look and share some of those cards. But what I want to do, first of all, is to highlight why there is one thing that I have been talking about recently, and I'm going to be talking about a lot, and that is grounding, and why I believe that grounding in our own, in our own body, and being grounded physically, grounding, doing daily things to help us ground in a more physical way, and a mental, emotional and spiritual way, I believe is going to really be important and really help a lot of people who are spiritually led at the moment or awakened move through a lot of the transitions and challenges of 2025 much stronger, right? And also to be able to hold more light and to be guided in a better way, right? Now, also grounding, I believe it's important to apply grounding to our business, and I'll explain why. But let's go back to grounding in relation to why I believe it's important for us. We always should focus on grounding, but why is it extra important this year? Well, if we think about what grounding is basically a connection to the earth and a connection to our body, right? And when we're grounded, we're stable in our body and we're balanced with nature, right? And we are less in our heads, less out in the external world, as in the things that are not important, but we're connected with universal intelligence and we're connected to a state of flow in an innate nature. When we're ungrounded, we can be very much in our heads, or our energy can be elsewhere out the body or in things that where it really shouldn't be. Right? We're not fully embodying our body, and our polarity becomes out. And what I would call you're having an earth connection. So now symptoms of being ungrounded there can be a long list. And just because I see some things, don't just automatically assume it's just because you're ungrounded. I do believe that a lot of these things are partly ungrounded, but remember, if things could be related sometimes to a medical condition or something else. But I'm going to share some things that you might be surprised that can be a symptom of being really ungrounded. So being ungrounded, you can have a lot of scattered energy. You can just feel what we call, is it discombobulated, right? You can feel as if you're off, that you're just not centered. And one of the things that I notice when I'm not grounded is that sometimes my alignment, my connection, my channel, my guidance, my intuition is just not really that strong or as clear and firm. And I can just feel as if my nervous system is like kind of all over the place sometimes. Where when you're grounded, you feel more calm, you feel more centered, and you get those intuitive nudges, you get the clear clarity, and the ego doesn't get involved. It's not the head, right? When, there's a big difference between what we believe in relation to, our ego running the show and the mind running the show. And when we get those intuitive nudges or this knowing and inner guidance that comes, to me, it's almost kind of firm. It's like, this is the only way I could describe it if it's a person, that if you can imagine your intuition as a person, right? For me, my intuition can come in sometimes really almost firm, but quick. It's a quick thing that you cannot know almost instantly with certain things. And obviously, so for example, I am more claircognizant. I do have sometimes visions, which is clairvoyant, and I kind of sense energy. So, I'm clairsentient, right? And these are my strongest ones. Some people are more clairaudient, and some people can taste things and smell things, and there's different aspects. But for example, when I have clear knowing, right, it just really comes in very quick, and it's like the information just comes. Someone maybe be telling me something and I just get this instant knowing, or out of the blue I could be doing something, washing the dishes or doing something in the house, and the next thing this clear knowing comes in. It's just like a quick thing. It's like almost the ego doesn't have time, the mind doesn't have time to analyze it, right? It just comes in and you don't know why, right? And it's clear when you're triggered, when it's not really your intuition, when you're triggered and you believe something, but you're either triggered, that's usually you can be angry, you can be annoyed, you can be fearful, there's a kind of emotional charge to it, and it's very analytical. You start ruminating, right? And that's very different. So sometimes we can get very confused by both. And what I would say also, that as individuals, so how they sense it and feel it can be very different. And that's a whole other thing that I could probably go into, on another video. But if we think about when you're grounded, if you think about a tree, and a tree is we'll use an oak tree because it is strong and it's something that people can relate to. If you think about a large oak tree, it has big, long, like strong roots, right? Now, those roots help to keep it stable, right? And help it to be able to get the nutrients from the earth that it needs to survive. And it also has enough strong roots that can build up and shine and look up to the sky, get the sun, and be able to branch out and also connect with the ecosystem that is in that forest or area, right? So it thrives being able to have roots and connect with things that are going to support, right? If it does not able to have those roots and it's uprooted, well, it's kind of get starved, right? And it can really struggle because it has nothing to stay straight. And it's nothing to keep that straight alignment. And we can be very much the same. Now, there's lots of things that can impact your grounding, and, trauma, sometimes injury. There's so many things. And I go into this more in my grounding toolkit for empaths and healers. But if you think about grounding is supposed to be something that we're naturally able to do. But in the modern world, we're exposed to so many things that make us ungrounded, right? We're exposed to far more things that can that trigger anxiety and stress, and particularly at the moment. We're exposed to a lot of technology, a lot of things that stimulants, a lot of foods and things that are not natural, things that have not got a vital life force. And if you think about, sadly, people are living most of us, in many ways, even those of us who try and live a more natural and holistic life, are still exposed to large amount of toxins. And you just need to look at what people are wearing, right? And what they're surrounded by. In our world, if you just look at things, not everything's wood, not everything's natural. Lots of things are man-made, plastic, and they don't have that vital force. A lot of things that are highly toxic and have a very low vibration. When you're grounded and when you're with nature, there's certain ion things that support the body and help us release stress. When we are surrounded by toxicity and things that are not natural, we build up a lot of static, right? Now, the energy of 2025, if we look at what's been going on in 2024, it's a build-up, right? And in many ways, if we look at the last 4 or 5 years, and even a bit longer, but let's look at even the last 4 or 5 years, which is easier for people to understand because you know a lot of things that's going on. We've never had probably a time in the world when there was something that happened all over the world at the same time. And that had a ripple effect. And there was lots of layers to that ripple effect. And one aspect of that was disruption. And I'm going to just take out a card that I brought out to explain something about this. And it's to do with the destroyer, the destroyer archetype, right? Now, if you think about what a destroyer is, right, and I'm going to just show you this card, right? And if you see this card, it looks like it's like a volcano and something is erupting. And it's like things are getting spewed out and things are coming out all over the place from this volcano. So there may be the things on the surface, but the volcano basically brings out things and things can land all over the place, right? But it causes disruption. But the reality, the destroyer is not always. We might look at things and we see someone that appears in an archetypal perspective or a situation that seems like something's being destroyed or something is causing chaos, or that's all negative. But underneath, if we think about the earth, when something has been disrupted and something's been shaken about and something it can help unveil what has been hidden. And we have been in the period of awakening, of unveiling, and that's been part of the energy of society and part of the cycle that's been happening. So it's this unveiling of what has been hidden, an unveiling of what is not fact, but what we maybe perceive to be fact or truth, which is not exactly what it seems, right? So if you look at the destroyer, it's releasing what is potentially destructive and preparing for new life. Now, the shadow attribute is intoxication with destructive power, destroying others' dreams or potential, right? So you can have, you could have someone who's intentionally trying to destroy something for the greater good. But on the other hand, they could have someone who's destroying that for their own goods, for maybe for power or for other agenda, right? They might be getting manipulated, whatever. But they then, by doing that, either intentionally or cause other people's to be just, their lives to be destroyed, their dreams to be destroyed, certain things to be destroyed, right? Now, one of the challenges we've had over this period of time is for people to have more discernment. And in many ways, I believe it's a spiritual lesson that the collective is facing at the moment. And they're having to learn how to be more discerning. It's like a soul lesson that, because in the modern world, one of the examples of being ungrounded is not having that clear channel and not being connected to your channel. So if you think about the tree has to have its own channel into the earth. It needs to have its own position to be able to face the light, and it has to be itself. But in this modern world, there is a lot of conditioning programming that it tells us that we should be getting our information and we should be believing certain news channels, certain books, certain education, colleges, certain universities, certain people. There's like a narrative, there's a certain construct that what people are supposed to follow. Now, what we're recognizing at the moment is that not everything is what it may have first appeared or used to appear. Things are not, lots of things in society and world are not as transparent and as clear as what we think. So part of that being the ability to ground, when there are a lot of things getting destroyed around about you, or even people are trying to destroy your life, whether that be good or bad, destroy things that you've related to you, it can be very easy to automatically think that they're doing it for bad, right? Or that they're the bad person, or they're this. When we become more grounded, it's like when sometimes things happen in our life that seems terrible. When we have something that seems to be destroyed, we lose a job, we lose something that's very valuable to us, or something we can lose our health or something else in our life. And at that time, it feels like someone's coming in and destroyed something, even if it's not a person, but something, and you can feel robbed, right? But the reality is that it takes us maybe a bit of time to recognize that actually that element, that construct, that pattern, whether that be a person or a situation or an energy, that destruction cleared the way for something new, or it revealed something that you needed to see, something that you needed to help maybe shift your perspective or have a new way of looking at things. Because sometimes we do not see the bigger picture, or we are so limited in our views and our ideology that we've got lazy. And that's one of the things that I think is also been part of the lesson, is that we've gave so much power away to governments, to people give even power away to celebrities, people give power over to education systems, to all sorts of aspects of society, and assumed that, first of all, that they were taking care of your needs, or they were all fixing it, where actually it's about us. We've gave power. We've not got the sovereignty. We've not got the power. We're given responsibility to lots of things that actually, probably in some ways, are our responsibility. We've given over to somebody else. And we've given, and even though some of it may not always be a bad thing, it's that when you give too much authority over to something, right? And then you recognise, well, wait a minute, I'm partly to blame because I've got lazy and I've not really been looking at this, and I've not really paid attention, and I've just went with what I've been told, and I've not really looked at it. And that's part of what's going on in society. Now, that can happen in our own life. If you think about the ego, and you can think about awareness and different things, it's like the inner child. So inner wounding in our inner child, there's lots of layers, and there's things that go on the conscious level, and there's things that go at the unconscious level, and there can be different layers, and sometimes it can be things that come a wee bit of our consciousness, but we don't fully give it attention. And the easiest way to explain it is it's things that are on our peripheral vision, things that are at the edge, that are kind of there, but we don't really look at, right? And this year, I do believe that if we don't focus on our grounding, we're going to end up burnt out a lot quicker. That's the most obvious thing. When you're not grounded, believe me, as someone that in my early 20s, I was only 19, and I started suffering from extreme burnout. Now, my story started with a lot of strange, weird things happened to me, and which compromised my immune system. But I put it this way, my own stress levels, my own anxiety levels, and my people pleasing, my ego wanting certain things to happen and wanting it to happen a certain way. I was so focused on a certain way of doing things. Also, I was in an era where it was all about you can do anything that you want, and you just keep going for it. It was almost like that goal setting, go, 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 set your goals, and no matter what happens, you just keep going for it. And I literally nearly killed myself, and I ended up spending a large part of my 20s, which you would class as predominantly housebound and at times bedbound. I also had threatened eye loss. I had a very serious, very rare condition where I had to be monitored all the time. And that made me recognise how easy it is that burnout, it's like a fine line, it's like a thread, and sometimes you don't know how close you're to that thread or that line, and when you just cross over that line, it's almost like you've done so much damage. Believe me, it's far easier to heal things and to solve things when they're under that fine line. But when you go over the fine line and the damage is done, trying to reverse that is far more complicated. And one of the things about boundaries and grounding, which was a big, big thing for me, was that it helped me understand how important that in our work, in our purpose, in our life, even in our soul's mission, how important grounding is, our sovereignty and our boundaries. And I believe that getting into 2025, we have to start with grounding. And grounding can start also with being more still, being more in the moment, and grounding that in, but being fully in your body. One of the things that I notice as a healer, I've studied healing for over 30 years, and I've studied many disciplines, and I've literally worked with hundreds of healers. I've went to many people myself. I've done many courses, And I've been a taught healing for many years. But one of the things is we have many different schools of thoughts. And what I've noticed about certain people are only taught certain modalities in certain ways is that they get so focused on the light and so focused on their channel and, and raising their vibration, but they don't focus on really the physical aspect of the grounding aspect, the practical aspect. And also, if you're highly sensitive, if you're a highly sensitive empath, which I am, and sometimes, if you've also had maybe medical challenges, sometimes certain types of grounding techniques and strategies are just not as helpful or as useful. They just don't work for the right reasons. And some of that is to do with a lot of shadow work you need to do, maybe look at trauma. But there can be other reasons as well. It's not been till, more recently that I recognised that I actually had a sensitive processing issue since a child, which became more of a problem later in life. And all of these things, like, we're all different, we're all unique. And how grounding's maybe going to look for you may be slightly different than somebody else. But the reality is that if we incorporate some sort of grounding strategy in our daily routine, right? No matter what you're now, even if you're housebound, I'm still predominantly in many ways housebound. I rely on other people. I formed a rare form of noise sensitivity, and even though it's slightly getting better, it's just not practical for me at the moment to go out on my own because I have these noise-related seizure type, episodes now. If you're someone like me, the reality is you want to be bringing nature as much to you, and you want to be doing as many things that can ground you in. And when you do that, it helps you embody more light and more energy. When you can't ground in, you can end up with a lot of challenges, and you can't hold the light if you're not grounded in. If you don't have your heaven and earth connection, you cannot ground in the light. And you see a lot of people then end up having lots of health challenges if they don't ground the light in. They end up maybe doing all sorts of strategies to self-soothe. Some people can end up back in addictions and all sorts of things. And the last thing that anybody wants to do is, for example, if I'm going to heal, the last thing I want to be doing is to go to a healer that has an alcohol issue. There's no way I want anyone near me that is, doing anything like that. So the reality is, you have to really ground in your own energy. And the more that you can ground in your own energy and go into your own body, no matter how uncomfortable that is, because sometimes when there's a lot of trauma, that can be physical trauma and all sorts of trauma, you have to be able to ground in. Now, the more that you ground in your own energy and you ground into the earth, you're also able to receive. I've had a huge issue about receiving. I always wanted to give, but had struggled to receive. And the more and more that I looked at it, I recognised there was an interconnection with my ability to ground and my ability to feel safe, supported, and to be part of the physical earth. Right? Now, there can be lots of reasons for that. When you get more grounded, you are more connected to, you have just a different shift in relation to energy of the world, and you feel different, right? If you're constantly in your head and constantly out your field, you'll also, particularly if you're empathic or you're a healer, you will tend to feel more people's pain, take on more people's energy, attract all sorts of weird and wonderful things that are energetic out there, which are not helpful. So the reality is, we're at a point in society where the collective, people that are not even awakened, that have not done even any work on themselves, are facing a lot of really extreme challenges at the moment. They're having to wake up to something's not quite right. And some are going down the spiritual path and some people are not. But when people hit crisis points, some people can automatically shift into a spiritual awakening and move and go down that path. But there's other people that just get angry, they get destructive. And what we're feeling at the moment is a lot of people's mixed emotions, mixed fear, mixed trauma, all sorts of anger and things like that. And that's sitting in the collective. And the last thing that you want as an empath or healer is to be taking on that energy that is in the collective, right? So it's another reason to ground. It's very difficult to have healthy boundaries when you're not grounded, right? So the grounding has to be the first thing. Now, if you think about the destroyer, right, when you have strong foundations and you have strong foundations within you and your channel and your soul connection, your God connection, no matter what this destroyer tries to do, and your channel and connection is strong, they can't get in, right? So no matter what's going on in relation to something or energy or certain things that maybe want to try and pull you out of alignment, because people round about you can try and self-sabotage. It's like you're trying to eat healthily, and then someone in the family starts coming in with crap, right, and starts trying to push certain crap on you. You know, that's an energetic sabotage. But when you're strong in your own, you know, your own direction and your own will, your own sovereignty, you know, you're not going to be as much. And it's the same with society at the moment. There's lots of things happening that is going to change how we do things in the world, how we do business, how we do work, and how people are going to see things. So again, in relation to change, when you are more grounded, you adapt to change much quicker because you're connected with you. You're not dependent on all these external circumstances, right? Now, the other cards that came up was, and I'm going to, even though this wasn't the first card that came out, there's a reason why I'm going to do this card next, and that is the Child Divine. And I'm going to talk about it as the Divine Child, right? Now, when we talk about the Divine Child, right, we're talking usually about innocent purity, divinity, right? And if you think about a child, a newborn baby that they come in with that pure, everything's new, everything, it's like a light. And when you even think about a toddler and you're teaching them something, it's like everything's new and everything's sparkly. And you can see that God spark, that light, that innocence there. And it's like a clean slate, right? In the shadow aspect, the innocence has an inability to defend oneself because it's so pure and it does not see what is happening. And at the moment, there's two aspects of the light and the shadow going on with the innocence, because we have to bring ourselves back to divinity at the moment. We have to have that clear channel. We have to recognize that we're all aspects of God. We all have God within us. We all have this light and we have this sovereignty and divinity, right? But the reality, we're also having to spiritually grow up. We're having to recognize there is a big bad destroyer out there that can be also positive and light. So we have to have this spiritual maturity. And for many people, particularly a lot of light workers, what people call light workers and healers, and even the whole of humanity, they're having to grow up and look at that the world is not all just love and light and divinity, but there is a dark shadow. And there is people that have a very dark agenda, right? And the destroyer and the destructive, who we think is the destroyer, may not actually be who actually is the destroyer. And some people that we think are trying to do negative things and doing wrong, it may be polar opposites. People are starting to recognise this. But more importantly, at some level, we're having to look at the shadow within ourselves and understand where we are the destroyer, right? And also where we, our motives, like, so maybe sometimes we do try to destroy things or to change things because we think we're doing right. But if we we look at things from a different perspective, then we may think, oh my goodness, I'm actually the destroyer, I'm in the negative one. So there's a lot going on here, right? But also the other card that came out here was and I seem to have, oh, here it is, the God card, right? So if we look at the God card, right? So if you see the God card, it is the light attributes is benevolence, compassion, recognize the eternal force within yourself and others. And this is a great reminder that God is here. God is in every aspect of humanity. God is in the people that annoy you, that you disagree with. You know, there is an aspect, they're all God's children in many ways, right? And it's about reminding us to have compassion at this time, even for people we really don't believe or agree with, right? The shadow is despotism and cruelty, using power to control people. And this could be linked to the destroyer when it's someone playing God, right, for really bad reasons, right? But what has taught us over the last 4 or 5 years, it's not a straightforward thing. But we have to look inwards, first of all, and say, well, is there things that we're doing that we're trying to play God? Are we trying to control the people that we love? Are we trying to control circumstances? Are we surrendering to what is in society? Or are we trying to play God in our own lives or other people's lives? And sometimes also I think it's about, sometimes we always think we're right, or we think we know how life should be, or someone else's life should be, or something should go. But it might not be, we don't have the bigger picture. So I think this is really important. But it's to remind us that if you look at, God is about benevolence and compassion. And we have to have benevolence and compassion for ourselves, right? And we have to have benevolence and compassion for those that do not know what they do, right? Or are so engulfed in their own destruction and have been destroyed themselves that they go to destroy others. And this brings me back to this was the first card that I actually brought out, but I felt that it was more appropriate to talk about it in this way. So if we look at, this is a Samaritan. Now, the Samaritan card is all about refining your capacity to help those you would prefer to ignore, right? And the shadow is about having appreciation and recognition for the help that you do, the things that you do every day, the simple things that you take for granted. Now, in life, we can think that the most powerful things that we do, particularly if you are a healer, a therapist, a coach, or have some sort of holistic and spiritual business, you can think that your most powerful work and the biggest part of your mission is those that work. But you don't know, because sometimes it's helping a stranger on the street and doing the smallest thing for someone that you don't really think about, and even doing something for someone you don't like, that actually can be the most life-changing event for that person or for the world, because you don't know that butterfly effect, right? Now, one of the things that I've felt energetically really strongly about, and I could sense, and I've also sensed it on other levels, is that a lot of what people that have maybe studied healing or therapy, personal development, counselling, or are attracted to this type of work or become awakened, is that a lot of people, for example, come to me, and they want to create businesses. But sometimes when I can sense by the way that they're talking and speaking, they assume that they've got to create a business out of what they think is a purpose. But the reality is that sometimes they're not meant to have a business. They're meant to do another type of job, and in bringing and incorporate what they've learned and a lot of this work or their techniques and tools is about what they've learned. They can bring it to the table because they've shifted their belief system, they've shifted their awareness, they have a new approach. And it's that's bringing to the table something more powerful. And what we've noticed is a lot of awakened people are bringing in new perspectives to workplaces and places where don't have that view, are very limited. And many people that are more open to other things are shifting the energies and having this ripple effect in all sorts of industries. If you think about, they're shifting the banking industry, they're shifting the pharmaceutical industry, the medical industry, by people that don't have the same old controlled views and have a certain level of consciousness. So the more that we do our inner work, and the more that we look at our divine child from a perspective that we're all supposed to heal and get back to that divinity and sovereignty. And, there's lots of ways to do that. I mean, you can always reach out, can help with some inner child work or other work in relation to that type of work. But that is one way, right? But the reality is it's going back to the divinity within us. It's going back to the purity so that we can hold our sovereign power and hold an essence, because every single person that's watching this video has their own unique mission, their own purpose, that has their own energetic blueprint. And it's almost like the more you clean it, the more that you take what's not supposed to be there, like back to the destroying the volcano, the more you get rid of what's not supposed to be there, things that should have never been there in the first place, the more it gets clean and you start afresh, right? Now, I believe that these are all really important things for 2025. So let's go back. Grounding, making sure that you're grounded daily so that you can be a channel and you can be mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually resilient. Recognize that divinity and that God aspect within us and within other people, right? It helps you see things from a different perspective. Also helps you become more open and not as get so fixed in certain views that you may be missing something. And it's that God aspect, really, that being a clear channel and being willing to let go what is not, right? And then it's about recognizing that being the Samaritan for someone else, even people you don't like, or doing things that you might not think's that important, actually that can be your mission wasn't it. Think about the people that have helped in a small way, some of the most important people in the world that have made life-changing things that have happened in the world. It was maybe a teacher, a mother, an aunt, someone that just gave them a little bit of confidence, someone that pointed them in the right direction. These are the people that had the cascading effect in that person's life and actually changed history, right? So remember, get grounded, own your divine child, and be a clear channel for God. And remember that we're here on earth to have compassion and care for a fellow man. And sometimes it's the small things that we do are far more powerful than these fancy titles or the things that we think we're here to do. Have a wonderful year, a blessed year. And if you need more help to get grounded, I have an amazing offer in my grounding toolkit for healers. It's for empaths, therapists, and coaches, and really for anyone. But I have marketed it towards healers and empaths. Also, if you want help to be more soul aligned in your business this year, pop over to my YouTube channel over at the Spiritual Marketing Club, and I'll be sharing a new class that I'm going to be offering in the next couple of weeks. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and if you need any support, reach out. Bye-bye.